David N. Kaplan, assistant professor of philosophy at the University of North Texas, said in 2004 that, quote, until manufacturers can guarantee safety and institute procedures to keep the unsafe products out of our foods, GMOs should be viewed as possible health hazards and avoided whenever possible, end quote. My partner and I agree that genetically modified organisms, or GMOs, have significant harms to public health. In order to solve this problem, we are resolved that the United States federal government should significantly reform its environmental policy. In order to provide clarity for this round, we offer Observation 1, the definitions. John McCormick, professor of political science, said environmental policy is any course of action, deliberately taken or not taken, to manage human activities with a view to prevent, reduce, or mitigate harmful effects on nature and natural resources, and ensuring that man-made changes to the environment do not have harmful effects on humans, end quote. The World Health Organization defines genetically modified organisms as organisms in which the genetic material, DNA, has been altered in a way that does not occur naturally. It allows selected individual genes to be transferred from one organism into another, also between non-related species. Such methods are used to create GM plants, which are then used to grow GM food crops. For future reference, the terms GM, GMO, GE, and genetically engineered are all terms for genetically modified organisms. Observation 2, the judging mechanism. When evaluating policies, one must determine what is important. When considering the environment, we believe it is vital to hold to the value of the quality of life. We will uphold this value through two criteria. First, protecting human health. Second, strengthening the economy. Before considering the plan and reasons for change, let's examine Observation 3, the background. The U.S. is a major GM producer. The Pew Initiative on Food and Biotechnology published in August of 2004 that, quote, since 1996, the United States has consistently planted more GM crops than any other country, with 105.7 million acres supporting GM crops in 2003. Observation 4, the plan. Our agency and enforcement is the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the USDA, and the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA. They will pass the following mandate. The federal government will ban the importation, production, growth, and usage of genetically modified organisms. Funding will come from normal means. There are two significant justifications or reasons to ban genetically modified foods. We examine these in Observation 5, the justification. Justification 1, human health. Point A, GM consumption is unavoidable. GM farms spread genes that affect non-GM crops. The Drake Journal of Agricultural Law explained in the summer of 2008 that, quote, the wind carries the genes from a genetically modified crop and fertilizes crops that are organic or conventional. The cross-pollination that occurs threatens the genetic purity of organic and conventional crops. An alarming study showed that certain genetically modified crops were more likely to cross-pollinate than crops that were not genetically modified, end quote. Point B, vague standards for GM products. The Ecology Law Quarterly published in 2007 that, quote, for a genetically modified food product to be approved, the FDA must determine that the modification did not result in adulteration of a valuable constituent of that food. To supplement this vague standard, in 1992, the FDA developed limited guidance for industry seeking voluntary compliance with suggested review standards for new plant varieties. The FDA has not promulgated any mandatory regulations to clarify implementation of the statutory language regarding food adulteration. There are clearly weak standards on the safety of genetically modified crops. The Independent Science Panel said in 2003 that, quote, contrary to the claims of proponents, GM crops have not been proven safe. The regulatory framework was fatally flawed from the start. It was based on an anti-precautionary approach designed to expedite product approval at the expense of safety consideration. The principle of substantial equivalence on which risk assessment is based is intended to be vague and ill-defined, end quote. Point C is the impact. Lives at risk. The American Academy of Environmental Medicine said in 2009 that, quote, there is more than a casual association between GM foods and adverse health effects. Specificity of the association of GM foods and specific disease processes is also supported. Multiple animal studies show significant immune dysregulation, including upregulation of cytokines associated with asthma, allergy, and inflammation. Animal studies also show altered structure and function of the liver, including altered lipid and carbohydrate metabolism, as well as cellular changes, end quote. The risk of genetically modified foods led to the disaster in the late 1980s with the case of L-tryptophan. The Food and Drug Law Journal described this in 2006. Quote, one of the first GM products brought to the market, a genetically altered version of the dietary supplement L-tryptophan, illustrated the risk of toxicity to humans. When Showa Denko, Japan's third largest chemical company, introduced a GM version of L-tryptophan into the US in the late 1980s, at least 1,500 people were permanently disabled and 37 died from neurological problems, end quote. Genetically modified foods have jeopardized health in the past and continue to jeopardize health today. Justification 2, efficient food production. Point A, GM foods are outproduced. The Interpress Service wrote in 2008 that, quote, several scientists and environmental activists say that apart from the health concerns, GMOs are not a solution to food scarcity either. Hans-Georg Jacobsen, biologist at the University of Hanover in Germany, says most of the genetic modifications introduced in crops aim at making them resistant to pests or weed killing, but not to increase yields. Modern cultures free of any genetic modification have higher yields than genetically modified seeds. GM foods consistently produce less than traditional measures of food production. We see point B is slowed agricultural sector. The Independent Science Panel published in 2003 that, quote, the consistent finding from independent research and on-farm surveys since 1999 is that GM crops have failed to deliver the promised benefits of significantly increasing yields or reducing herbicide and pesticide use. GM crops have cost the United States an estimated $12 billion in farm subsidies, lost sales, and product recalls due to transgenic contamination, end quote. United States production of GM crops significantly slows the agricultural sector. By banning the production of these crops, the U.S. agricultural sector will be able to thrive. While the U.S. is currently a major GM producer, by banning GM products in the U.S., we will protect human health and increase the agricultural sector. In summary, we agree with the Iowa Environmental Council when they said, we must act responsibly and knowledgeably about GMO technology to ensure it doesn't threaten the very humanity it was supposed to serve. Thank you. I'm now open for questions.
Hey Sarah, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. Okay, timer here. Okay. Alright, first off, where do you derive the constitutional authority with which you enact your plan?
Currently, the FDA has the authority given to it to ban GM foods. When it comes to the Constitution, we see that under the Commerce Clause, we're able to deal with trade issues, and GM foods would also fall under that. If you look at the Constitution, though, in the end, we will not be violating any constitutional principles.
Sure. Okay, do you have any examples in the past of where the government has banned an item that we consume?
I believe the government did ban DDT.
Okay, and is that a food item?
No, but genetically modified foods, we inject it with different genes. We're banning the use of that.
Okay, alright, great. Let me go on now. In your case, did you present a specific plan advocate that advocated a ban on GM foods, like straight
Not
up ban?
specifically in the case. The American Academy of Environmental Medicine, I believe it is, they advocate a moratorium on GM foods.
A moratorium, okay. And did you read that in your case?
We didn't read that.
Okay. Let's see. Let me ask you about L-tryptophan. Is that the only instance of genetically modified foods resulting in human death?
That's the instance that we've linked to through our case. However, we can show you other examples where we found it to be harmful and we released it on the market anyways. So
Okay, great. Now, is L-tryptophan, is that a food or what exactly is
that
that?
was a drug, a medicine.
Right. Okay, so a food supplement, basically.
A medicine for certain diseases, but sure.
Okay. Okay, and did your evidence state that it was specifically a genetically modified supplement?
It was specifically talking about the GM product of L-tryptophan. Yes, it did.
Okay. All right. Let's see. How many crops tend to transfer genes through cross-pollination? What types of crops are we talking about here? Is that basically just corn?
You know, the evidence didn't specify what types of crops, but all GM foods have the potential of cross-pollination. So they all do threaten the genetic purity of organic crops.
So every crop could potentially cross-pollinate if it's genetically modified?